Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Awesome on the Inside. I'm your host, Debbie Pearson, and today I'm here with Jacqueline Best. How are you doing, Jacqueline?
I'm awesome from the inside all the way out.
I love it. Thank you. Oh, my goodness. Okay, so I was looking through so many pieces of Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and YouTube, and wow, it is very impressive. You are all over the place, and I love your message about healing and health and wealth and just joy and abundance. And I'm very, very excited that we're going to be talking about that today. So instead of going through this whole bio thing that we could do, why don't you just tell me a little bit about how you came to understand that what was happening in your life and what you had been taught wasn't really fulfilling you. It wasn't all the material goods that were making life wonderful. Tell me about that.
That's a great question. And I mean, I think a lot of people get it now, but when it first happened to me back in 1991, most people were looking at me like, am I on drugs? Have I lost it? Because I had a very successful corporate career, and I was, essentially set, for life by just staying where I was doing and had all the material things. But there was a churning sort of inside. My health wasn't good. It was stress, it's all stress and blah, blah, blah. And I thought that was normal to have health issues. And there was just something inside me. And then one weekend I sort of was like meditating, praying, doing everything, saying like, I just want a sign. I call it my eat, pray, love moment now. And I sat down and I wrote a poem at 11 p.m. about trusting your instincts and following your guidance. And I went in the next day. I went to a travel agent. I said, how do I get to Africa? I've always wanted to be to Africa. How soon? I went in, resigned, and I took off.
Wow.
And that was the beginning of me trusting and stepping out of what was considered to be normal or the real world. And from that step, I've discovered a whole new world, and what I now call my best whole new world.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we'll talk more about those things here shortly. You started to live life on your terms.
Mm-hmm.
And by doing so, you began to understand that what other people had taught you were not necessarily good for you. And I'm not really sure when it began, but you started to understand that you needed to heal from the inside out. Mm-hmm. And you began to help others begin to experience how to trust their own inner guidance. Can you share a little bit about how that shift occurred for you, where you're like, oh, so this is what I'm supposed to do, okay?
Well, I think that's a great question about, so this is what I'm supposed to do, because a lot of people want to just have the answer, what's my purpose, right? Just tell me what I need to do and I'll be that. And my experience was a little different, and I was sharing that with someone just the other day, saying, sometimes I think there are those of us like myself that don't actually know what your purpose is, or when they say kids nowadays will have 7 or 8 jobs, it's because there's a variety of things that we need to have as an experience. So for me, when I was in Africa, I spent 4 months. And what I noticed was the people's eyes were so full of love and life. Like what I saw and experienced in Africa was completely different than what the media was portraying as I traveled through Eastern and Southern Africa. And people were washing their clothes in what I consider filthy, dirty water, and they're singing and they're happy and they're joyous and they're sharing their one piece of fruit with me. And I'm going, is there anything else that you have? And I'm just kind of like, this is bizarre, because I'm from Canada, you're from the States. So North America, we're all stressed. I mean, I worked for a US multinational. We're all stressed and we're wanting what's next and what's the next thing I can buy. And yet they were all so happy. So I really felt that they knew something that we didn't know.
Exactly.
And they weren't reading it in a book.
This is so true. So what do you tell people today that are like doing all the seeking? They are reading the books, they're going to the events, they're or used to be going to events, right? And will again go to events, but whether they're doing it online or in person or whatever, they're seeking because they know that they want that too. They want that inner joy, that almost inexplicable verbiage that you can speak, you can only feel. But how do you help people that are seeking this, they're not finding it? What is some words that you can share with them about how to go within?
I think that's why I've just completed this book, Trusting Your Intuition, Discovering Your Superpower in 10 Days, because each day there's a step to help people on their own journey of looking within instead of out there. And obviously we're all in this together. So people are guided to you or they're guided to me, and that can be a piece of the experience and the great big puzzle for their life. But I always like the point of the book is that your superpower is in here and it knows what's best for you. Mm-hmm. And when you strengthen your own awesomeness, you know, when you're awesome, feeling that awesomeness from the inside and you're strong in what you feel is true to you, you're able to discern what and where to go. So it's like, there might be such great offerings out there. You know, it's like, buy now. Everybody's buying this program. Everybody's telling you it's great. But inside, there's something that says, no, that's not for you. And to be able to be strong enough in your own convictions and say, it's okay, I still love and appreciate everybody for where they are. Yeah. I have to go a different way. So one of the things I always, like day 2 in the book is about your body as your barometer. And your body is where I feel most people have forgotten to even pay attention to. They're pointing a finger outside in the world, and I would say to my kids when they grew up, when one finger points out, 3 are pointing back at you. Yep. Right? So it gives you an opportunity. If you see awesome on the inside, you see lots of great things in life. I see lots of great things in life. I was just sharing with someone, I'm here in Prince Edward Island. We've had, basically no hospitalizations, 27 cases. I mean, we're out in nature, we're enjoying ourselves. It's a completely different world, right? Now, I also heard the other day in the news in the Congo, they're fighting Ebola and this other, thing, right? So everybody has their own experience. And it's really, how's it affecting you? Mm-hmm. So if you're not feeling awesome on the inside or feeling great, then that's where I would start. I would say, okay, what am I noticing that is bothering me? Is it as soon as my husband comes home and I hear him walk through the door and I'm like, oh, I have to deal with this? Is it, the college kids have come back and you're like, oh, I'm back dealing with this? Is it turning on the news? Is it that you're just listening to somebody? It could be a podcast, and you can start to feel that yourself is saying, I disagree with this, but you keep listening. Like, I think there's all signs within ourselves to say, you know what, why am I doing that to myself? Mm-hmm. And that's where the healing begins, is noticing it's about me and you versus what's out there.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I know that there's a lot of people watching an awful lot of either television or YouTube videos, becoming very, very stressed about what's happening and not knowing what to do with that stress. And so I guess to get back to you with the superpower, if a person can understand and learn how to trust their intuition, which is their superpower, they're learning how essentially to trust themselves, that they don't need someone else to tell them Because, I mean, let's face it, Jacqueline, we've been other directed our whole lives.
Right.
I mean, in the houses we grew up in, our parents or whoever was training us, this, don't do that. Yes, no, 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 no. When we go to school, the teachers, professors, or whatever are teaching and telling us, do this, don't do that, right? So they're also directing us. We go to work, they've got their set of rules. They're directing what we can and cannot do. And I just do not ever remember, and maybe other people can remember, but I do not ever remember anybody sharing with me in my growing up world, how do I take care of myself? How do I direct myself? How do I lead myself? And that's where my seeking came in. And I was desperately wanting to learn how to. But again, it seemed like I would speak with that person and they would tell me how they did it, and it was their way, right? Write in your journal about this, or take a specific kind of meditation for this many minutes, and unfortunately, none of that really worked for me. But the trusting of the intuition, understanding how somebody may say, do meditation, but you find out it's a walking meditation. You've used your intuition, right? And now you go, oh, this works for me. So now I'm leading myself. So it's more self-led. So I love that it's discovering your superpower in 10 days. I think that's fabulous. It's these specific steps for an individual to begin to honor what feels right for them and not looking outside to others that they may have trusted in the past. There's nothing wrong with trusting other people. Just make sure it's right for you.
Yeah, it's so, you know, in the steps of the book, for instance, it's like we do a simple little tuning, because you mentioned about meditation. So I've tried the meditation thing in various formats, and I describe, like, to me, prayer, meditation, and tuning in, they're different experiences. Prayer was like asking God to help or setting an intention. Meditation was like, I'm leaving, in a sense, connecting with the universe, but I was more than my body. And to me, tuning into your inner guidance is like bringing the whole universe into your body. And when you bring all that power into your body and you realize that this is like when you can touch into your Google search engine, kind of, right? That's what your inner guidance is. It depends on what question you ask Google, what result you get. So it's like when you learn to work within yourself, you start to see where you're guided. And when you learn to discern in your body what feels move forward, what is, oh, don't go there, right? And there's that subtle little difference that a lot of people mistake. It's about resistance. It's like when you go to work out and do some push-ups the first time, you're like, oh, my muscles are sore. Well, changing a habit sometimes in your inner guidance is essentially that. There's a little resistance because you're like, really? You want me to do that? And one of the common things I hear people say to me is like, I trust my inner guidance. I trust my gut. I trust it. I go, yeah. And they go, well, yeah, when it makes sense. And I'm like, well, it's my experience that it very seldom makes sense. The analogy I'd like to, I guess, use is that in the whole scope of the universe, let's say, if we drew a great big circle, there's a little piece of what we know that we know. Like, we know how we were raised, we know. And then there's a part we know that we don't know. Like, I do not know, how to be a heart surgeon.
Right.
But most of that pie of the universe is what we don't know that we don't know. Like 20 years ago, we did not know that we would be sitting here on Zoom and conferencing, or 10 years ago, we wouldn't even have known that we had this. So the newness comes when we get out of the box.
Yeah. And I love that you call it trust your intuition, because I'm like you. There are times when it makes sense. Oh, I should follow that, and I do. But I do agree that more often than not, something just as crazy as go lift the blinds or open the blinds. Like, why would I be told that? I mean, this literally happened. I was living in a house where I quote unquote never opened the blind. Maybe I did, but I don't, it was not a blind that I opened or closed on any kind of regular basis for any reason. And I just had this feeling, go open those blinds. I have no idea why,
Right.
but it was like, I just, it wasn't like I had an argument or anything about it. I just went over and I just opened the blinds up. And I looked out and my car's lights were on. Now, I mean, it's something as just as simple as that. Of course, it can be way huger than that too. But something as little as that was a big impact for me. It was a big impact. And I was like, oh my God, I loved that I listened to something that made no sense.
Right.
And I just went and did it. And I opened up, and of course, you know, what's the worst that could have happened? I would have had maybe a dead battery, but still just listening to those little things and then saying thank you and having that gratitude. And that is learning that inner trust. And I love that you have it as trust your inner, trust your intuition.
Well, doesn't that feed your awesomeness on the inside?
Abso-freaking-lutely.
Right?
It does. Because, yes, I totally agree that it does. You get, when you begin to trust yourself, you just begin to take better care of yourself. And the better care you take of yourself, the easier it is to find love for yourself. Mm-hmm. And then when you love yourself, genuinely love yourself, that deep down inside love, that's when you can really share your love with the rest of the world.
Yeah, and you know, we're so lucky that that's happened to you, because here you are sharing your gifts with everybody else, right? And letting everyone else start to feel awesome on the inside. And I feel like that is truly what it's about right now. Like I do in the book, it's like, it's all about convincing yourself, right? It's nothing. I share some of my experiences as points of possibly inspiration, but it is those moments of opening the blind, right? I had and when you start to operate from your inner guidance, it's like, you just expect, like you're living that way. And people, I call it the butterfly world, because caterpillars can't relate to the butterfly world. Caterpillars are on the ground.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And so what I'm wanting the book is to start them to cross the bridge in the chrysalis, which I think the whole world has kind of come into the chrysalis right now, to start to notice, what do you want to shift and what do you want to change in your life? But the butterfly world is, you just know that you're guided and things work out. So it's like, for instance, I'll just recount to what happened for me. So I was in Costa Rica when I'd been there. This was my 4th time. And this time I only bought a one-way ticket. And I thought,
how long ago was that?
This was, I went back in January. So all last year I was in, you know, pretty much in Costa Rica in the States. And so in January, I was like, just get a one-way ticket and go back. And maybe my idea was, I'll do the 90-day thing like a lot of people do. They go to Panama for a little bit, come back to Costa Rica. You know, that's why I'm being guided to get a one-way ticket. And then I also had this, but they say have a return ticket when you come in. And they've always asked me when I go through customs to show my return ticket, you know, where's my return flight? So, well, this is going to be part of the experience too, because you've told me to book one. Of course, the customs person never asked this time to see my return.
Tell everybody you told me to book one. You said you told me to book one. Tell everybody what you mean.
So you told me to book one, I feel, is like the source, the source that comes through me, right? It's like the director of the play. That's how I look at it, is the director said, or the script writer said, this is what you're to do. And I'm the actor, and I said, okay. That's the best way to describe it.
Try that way, right?
Yeah, right. Try that way. So I was in Costa Rica, loving where I was, peace and serenity. And then February 3rd, I woke up and had this feeling to book a return flight to Toronto. Now, I was like, it's still winter. Why would I want to go back? Right? So I do have that thought that came.
Yeah.
I'm smart enough or wise enough or have enough experience to trust. So I went and I started to Google like the airfares, and the airfares were like $1,000 because it was high season. And I was like, really? You want me to spend like 3 times as much and go back now? And I'm like, well, I'm feeling this prompt, but still it wasn't like buy the ticket Now, the next day, my girlfriend called me from Toronto and said, hey, any chance you're coming back to Toronto? Because I'd love you to stay at our place if you are. And I said, well, if you'd asked me 2 days ago, I would have said no way. But because of the timing, right? I'm like, I'm looking into flights now. 3 days had to pass. I found a flight for like 300 and something that took me up to Montreal and then back to Toronto. It was a beautiful flight that went all the way up the Caribbean. So I saw Cuba and Bahamas, perfect day. I never heard of the virus until February 28th when someone came into our lovely place. That was the first time I heard of the virus. I booked my trip on February 7th to return to Toronto. March 3rd, I was back in Toronto, well ahead of all my Canadian American friends down there. They were saying, why? I'm not going back. Like, why would I go back? Like, they didn't even, and they were all rushing and scattering and full of anxiety and frustration to get out at the end of March, where I was like, all chilled by then.
Right, yeah.
That's how inner guidance works.
Yeah, and it's like the part that drew me was when you said, I had like a prompt, but my thoughts were, why would I want to do that or whatever? Right. And so by just allowing a little bit of time to go without actually moving, so you didn't dismiss the thought,
right,
and you didn't dismiss the prompt.
Right.
You had both. And it seems like another day or two went by, whatever, and then a friend called. So it was kind of like one bumped up and the other one bumped down or whatever. So it was like more encouragement to go in a particular direction, which in this case was to go back to Canada. But it's kind of like that paying attention to what else is going on to help guide you into the direction that you need to go. I love that. Fabulous story. Thank you for sharing that, because that is truly trusting your intuition, because there's so many unknowns, but by you being so comfortable and trusting, because I don't think you just trust automatically 100%. I think it's a gradual inclining where you just more and more and more, it's like the resistance exercise, how you get stronger and stronger, right? And so the more you pay attention to, okay, I'm going to follow it, and then it works out well, that you have even more desire to follow it again, because something good, I will say the word, always happens. Even if it may seem off in the moment, when you can look back, every single time that I have followed my intuition from little bitty to big giant, it has worked out incredibly well. And I don't know that people need to, like for you, traveling into like a lot of places. Like right now, you said you're on Prince Edward Island, right? Who even knows that exists? I'm just kidding, but it's kind of like
it's the home of Anne Green Gables. Everybody knows where Anne lives.
Okay, 1 out of 7 billion plus. Okay, but it's like you've done these travelings, you've gone to places, you've followed your intuition. I did some crazy things, like I walked the Camino 500 miles across Spain by myself. I decided that at some point I'm like, the corporate world's not for me either. I quit my job, sold everything I owned, I drove away. I don't know that people have to go through these big extreme things, although I think it's pretty awesome when you do, but it has to feel right. I trusted my intuition too. I didn't know what I was going to be doing when I left corporate America, which for me was actually a military civilian position, very coveted position, direct support to 4-star general, lots of people going, oh, but it did not fulfill my soul, right?
Right.
My soul said, you can't keep doing this. You're dying on the inside. And I just, at some point, just like you, I trusted the intuition that was getting louder and stronger inside of me to do this unknown thing, which has turned out to be a phenomenal journey that I have been on, and has brought me to be able to, from experience, speak about how to become more awesome on the inside. And that's where that phrase came from, because although everybody else doesn't know it, you and I talked a little bit about why awesome on the inside and not just awesome. And I don't know, awesome on the inside, Okay, so what we had talked about was awesome just felt too big and out there, and there was something I felt like I had to do. But to be awesome on the inside was just, my intuition said, yeah, just be awesome on the inside. Don't worry about the rest of all of that going on out there, right? So being awesome on the inside. Are you trying to say something?
I was just going to say, like, you've gone from, before you said you were dying on the inside when you were working, right? So it's like that you've gone to dying on the inside to being awesome on the inside. And I feel like that's where people miss the mark in their own transformation. The caterpillar does die to become the butterfly. It becomes the butterfly. It doesn't just, death does not. So suffering can lead to good, right? And
Yes.
it's, if you trust the breakdown to the breakthrough, then you start to realize everybody has some discernible moment. Sometimes it's a big aha, like the Eat, Pray, Love moment. Other times people just, it feels like sandpaper, you know, going in their life, and, you know, they're just noticing little things, and then finally they decide, you know, they're making little 1-degree turns, and then they've arrived at a new place.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And all of that. Sometimes it's big, sometimes little, milestones and stepping stones.
Yeah. But this is where I feel it's each person's experience. And I mean, I've written, just like we were talking before, you know, people read books and they say do the exercises and they won't do. So I ask a lot of questions, and I do encourage people to write their answers down. And I do make a note consistently, like the little inner guidance tune-in, which takes people probably a minute to do, is at the beginning of every chapter and at the end of every chapter, you know, it's reiterated, this is your experience. And the only way you're ever going to learn about your own superpower is to have the experience.
Absolutely.
So we can plant seeds.
Personal.
We can plant the seeds, and the seeds sometimes, like I talk about that. Louise Hay was one of those seeds that was planted for me back in the 80s, but I scoffed at the book. You know, I was like, I'm a corporate person, you know, I know everything. And my artsy fartsy musician friend that was hanging around with hippies was showing me this book, You Can Heal Your Life, right? But that was the moment the seed was planted for me to think. Yeah. You know, there are some times where I don't feel awful, you know, on the inside, right? Because this is what we're talking about, is when we go from dying on the inside to awesome on the inside, from struggling and stress, and we can appreciate, because we've been there, other people that have yet to come to where we're at, they would love to make us wrong for being happy and joyful and seeing the world awesome from the inside. Right?
Especially right now. Right. Exactly.
But there's always been death. There's always been all these things going on in the world. There's always been struggle and strife, and everything. It's always been happening. And how we manage it, it comes back to me like, was it Viktor Frankl in the Holocaust? Right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yes.
Man's search for meaning.
Yes. It was his mind, what he thought about, what he felt about, that's what brought him through. Right. And when he was able to stay this lighthouse for the world on, you know, healing from the inside out.
That was yes, exactly. And that was a phenomenal book. Dr. Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, just unbelievable. It was awesome and horrible to read all at the same time. So speaking of resources, we know you've written a book. We know that you've got a program to help people shift from where they don't want to be to where they do want to be. I know that you also do one-to-one coaching, and you also have other possible programs for specific needs that people may have. And I could speak all about all the different places, like I said, YouTube and Twitter and Facebook and everything. But I'd like to put all of that information so it's written. They can click a link and go to your different pages or get in contact with you. So I'll make sure that I have all your information with links below. But before we go, I would love for everyone to hear about the global party, which was called Healing from the Inside Out.
Yes.
And also I'll include a link on how they can get to that. I think it's on YouTube, isn't it?
I got it. Yeah, YouTube, or some of them are on my Facebook page. Yep.
Okay. So give us just an overview of what that was about, and how all you guys, what was it, 48 speakers in, how 12 speakers in 48 hours?
Yeah, it was, I mean, the first time I got the thought about this global party idea was 2017. So I'd literally just sort of come online. I was like, I only thought notifications were what Facebook was about, right? Because with Visionary Business School, it was like you go to the notification and people would complain about the Facebook feed. And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. Everybody that I click on has got good things to say, right? So that's how oblivious I was in 2017. And I was just starting to be like a kid and play with these, learn about video. I did my first Facebook Live once. I just came on and say, hey, have an awesome day or something great. And someone else, my good girlfriend Diana, you know, she was there, and that started a whole relationship. And so I got this thought at the end of May in 2017 was kind of like, you're going to have like a interview people on healing, just like we're doing here. And I was like, sure, I can do a virtual summit, right? I can do those recordings. It's like, no, it's going to be live. Like, again, when I say, no, you're going to, it's like these downloads. That's what it feels like. It's like a download.
Yeah. Yeah.
So literally within about a 21-day period, I knew maybe 3 people that had some sort of healing stories. I was guided. So again, it was a demonstration of me trusting this whole process of technology and watching Source create this event. And it was amazing to me, the people I was guided to and the stories that happened. And it was a 30-hour marathon that we did, and it was live. And even I was in a mastermind group, and the woman that led it is very successful online business. And she's like, okay, you know, she was telling me, I mean, I know they used to call me the Disney World lady, you know, the Disneyland lady, because everything I was talking about or what came to me was completely sort of against everything that was sort of already predetermined by the marketing funnel. So I did that, and I did that in 2017 and all that. And then I'm starting to feel like when I came back to Toronto this time, is that I had to get a group together again to create this energy to speak it out in the world. And essentially it was like, I was feeling it, but there was still, again, that little resistance, like, really, do I got to do this, you know? And then it was like, just to make sure, I had 3 people from different parts of the world reach out to me again on the same day, say, do you think you can organize this? I think the world needs this. So March 21st, so it was like March 19th, I went out and said, okay, you guys, it's time. Who's up for this? Are you convinced that we're healing the planet from the inside out? And so we did 12 hours straight of conversation, and everybody that contributed from their part of the world was basically we all agreed. We never would have asked for this to happen.
Oh, right. You're talking about the situation.
Right.
Yeah.
However, what we were asking for over the decades was for people to be more loving, for people to be more kind, for hearts to open, for us to be concerned about Mother Nature. You know, we were looking for people that are now considered essential to be recognized, that they're actually a person. You know, like, there's so many things that those of us that have been on this path have wanted to see come to fruition. Right. We just never imagined it would have been this way.
Living more in love than in fear,
yeah.
Right? And the experience showing up as the experience that's occurring today, the coronavirus and the chrysalis. I mean, when you said that earlier, it's like we are literally cocooning ourselves inside of the home. Yeah. It is the opportunity to shift from caterpillar to butterfly, should we choose to do that. And yes, we, as in the people who have made the shift, wanting more and seeing, I mean, how much more joyful is it to live from love than it is to live from fear? So you guys putting this together, and then it like prompting you, and you're like, are you serious? And then people can contacting you, and you're like, okay.
Right.
I surrender, I'll do it, because you know the benefit of what's going to happen because of it. And so
Yeah.
I'll make sure that we have that link on the page also. So, but thank you for sharing that with me, with all of us. It was really wonderful. So Jacqueline, I'm so thrilled to have had this time with you. I know that everybody else is going to enjoy this also. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we will talk again very, very soon.
Stay being awesome from the inside out.
You too. Okay. Bye.